Welcome to Season 2 with the Market Mystics, where we discuss and redefine markets, wealth, and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Join us on the journey while we consider new possibilities with special guests who might just challenge a few perspectives. Get ready to dive in deep with your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Thursday.
It is. How has your week of stillness been? Have you kept with it every day? Have you done something in stillness every day?
I've done something every day. I haven't done twice a day every day. Right. I realized that I have a family and things that sometimes keep me from it, which is a poor excuse. Because I really should be able to get into that place regardless where I am. But I think I'm also, okay, let me just tell you this. I think I'm also putting some parameters on myself that aren't really necessary.
Sure.
Do you ever do this to yourself? So
All
I'm like, oh, my stillness time, I need to be by myself. I need to not have any distractions. I need to not actually be doing anything else. I shouldn't be thinking about anything else. I shouldn't be blah, 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 blah. And I think there may be unnecessary parameters because I tend to actually think conceptually that stillness is like a state.
Sure.
It's not necessarily actually having to be completely idle.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Although I would say I don't know that while you are beginning to learn, beginning to practice it, that there's anything wrong with like dedicating space and time. But I think you can learn that pathway to get in that mindset, and then you can be in that mindset while you're at the DMV. But I don't know that at the beginning there's anything wrong with putting some of those parameters on to allow you to build that pathway.
For sure. I also wonder, am I going back to the beginning, or am I tapping into something, into a pathway that I just haven't been using much?
Sure.
That's also a real question. What about you? How's stillness going for you?
It's been good. Yeah. In between our recordings was the 4th of July, and I didn't dedicate as much time as I have the other days. I was just doing other things. I did still spend a little bit of time, but like the other days I've spent 40 minutes, like 45 minutes each day, like of focusing on what I wanted to. And so it's, there was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today's Thursday. So we've had 3 days in between, and one of those days was a holiday. So really just 2 days of really doing exactly what I wanted, and one day of sort of partially doing it. And so like and my intention is to continue this through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe recap a bit more on Monday before we introduce the next week's topic. But I can tell you already, some of the things that I've noticed is when I sit down, I'll use yesterday as an example. Like I didn't sleep well, I was pretty tired, and I was like, oh man, like I need to be aware, because if I sit down to meditate and I close my eyes, I might just fall asleep. And so I tried to be a little bit more active and stand or move or do something, but still put my mind in that mind space. And I found it easier to like, the third day of doing it, it was like that pathway was already being developed. And so I found it easier to slip into that place. And I've been I wrote down a couple notes, and I would say in the few short days, and like I've practiced stillness before, it's not the first time that I've done this, and so it's not necessarily starting from scratch. But in focusing on that pathway, some of the things I've noticed is an ability to focus better. Like there's been a handful of things that I've done where it's like, oh, I can put my attention on this for longer, even in meditation, like holding a picture, holding a thought longer than I had before is I've noticed that's been easier. The other
Mm.
thing I've done is I am horrible about journaling. I'm just not good at it. I buy journals all the time because I think it's a great idea. I have all these notebooks around, and most of them, if you flip through, it's like the first 10 pages maybe have something in it, and then there's nothing in the rest of the book. And it's because I'm like, oh, this is such a good idea, and then I never do it. But I've been more consistent in like writing down notes of what what my experience was, how long I did it, what was my focus, what, did I notice anything, did I feel anything in my body? And um, I think that that's been a really powerful thing for me, and something I would like to continue, maybe not daily journaling, but like, consistent journaling of my experiences, I think is really helpful. I heard somebody say once that their meditation journal they were going to hand down to their children as a way of helping elevate their children's beginning points,
Mm.
because maybe they could read these things and have some wisdom and understanding to know how to do things better. I was like, that's really cool.
It is.
The other thing is I have been more consistent in reading. Um, and I had sort of started that at the beginning of the year. I had made a goal um, to read a book a month, and but what I've noticed this week is like I've been reading right after my stillness time, and I've noticed that I flow right into it. It's like my brain is already sort of at ease, and so when
Mm-hmm.
I sit down to read, I'm comprehending more of what I'm reading.
That's interesting.
And
Do you think you're getting yourself into a posture of like openness for receiving?
probably, yeah, that's probably, and it's a, I think when you first start practicing stillness, your brain's just full of like 1,000 thoughts going, and so, and I don't think that's a wrong thing. I think you don't have to shut all that off. You just step out and become an observer of it rather than engaging in it. But I think sort of stepping into that observing posture has allowed reading to be better.
Hmm.
um, and the last thing that I've noticed is it's been a while since Kim and I talk about it, but originally this podcast was about trading and crypto and stock market and things like that. And I'm still actively engaged in that. And I have found, especially yesterday, I noticed it was like I just sat down, started looking at things, and I was recognizing patterns quicker than I had been before, which is something that we talk about as mystics being important to recognize patterns. But I think again that stillness, that observing effect that comes from that was helpful in that regard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. I want to go back a little bit about what you said, instead of being an engager of the thoughts, being an
Mm,
observer of the thoughts. I have never thought of it that way, but I think that's kind of the little bit of shift that I've seen so far with me.
mm,
Like I told you, like I'm trying to get still, and there's still a million thoughts coming, and it is all over the place. I mean, it is like future, past, present, tasks, ponderings, emotions, like it's all the
mm,
things all at once, right?
mm-hmm,
And but because I've been focusing in the stillness place, I have been stepping back from it and like, no, wait, I know that it's happening, but I'm still staying focused and not honing in on one of them and trying to process each one or something.
mm,
I don't know if
mm-hmm,
that is kind of what you're talking about, but that's kind of what I've been doing, like just kind of letting them happen.
mm-hmm,
And I've also and I might shift this. I've also been trying to set some intentions, but I've also tried not to just be seeking about something, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't want to set, I don't know. I don't want to set the topic of what the stillness is going to be about today, or like what I'm tuning into or what I'm hearing from the Lord or anything like that. I don't want to come with a list of tasks. I want to come and actually be still and absorb and observe and listen and be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. I think being an observer is can be an important skill to learn, because one thing I noticed a couple years ago, I did like a 90-day meditation. It was like a guided meditation plan. And it was a big part of it was learning to step back and just be an observer. And so not trying to shut off all the thoughts, not trying to control it, just allowing them to be and just watching. But one thing you quickly learn is like how oftentimes you're just bombarded with thoughts, and sometimes some of them don't even seem like, once you start observing them, it's like, oh, I'm not sure that was my thought. Like, you start to pick up on some of that. And you know, the Bible talks about taking every thought captive, and I think some of that has to do with which thoughts we actually entertain. Which thoughts do we like? I sort of see thoughts as like potential energy, and when we entertain them, we put emotion and actual energy into them, which brings them into a form of creation. And so I think that plays a part in that, like learning to be an observer and not just every single thing that runs through your mind you putting emotion and energy into. I think that can be really important.
That's super interesting. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I do this sometimes to Josh, and then I wonder if he just cringes internally.
It's okay. I've noticed when I go back and I edit some of these that we both do that. It's like, oh, we're on a trail, and then one of us just shifts, and it's like, I think it's good.
Okay, let's go for this ride. It's not that far off, but I came today to this conversation with, I told Josh yesterday, I said, I've had some ponderings. I don't know when you want to talk about them, but I want to talk about them. One of them was, I noticed a real shift over this past weekend, like July 1st ish. And it felt like a significant shift, like time to set new goals, like new trajectory, different acceleration, like those kinds of things. Not that everything is different, but it felt like kind of a new year. You know how when it's January 1st and everybody sets their resolutions and for the new year and intentions, and they find the word of the year, all the different things that people do. Well, it kind of felt like that this weekend. And this was one of my ponderings with him, is like the reason for that shift and the timing of it, which is not what I'm going to go into. So don't worry about that, Josh. Okay. But I do want to say this about setting intentions and about where you, like, which thoughts you put energy on. So it kind of makes me want to hone in on that a little bit. And maybe I'll just do that this weekend and like observe those thoughts, find the patterns, what is coming back over and over again, which one feels like, what feels like I need to put energy on it, and put energy on it. And then see if some of those need to be goals or directions or minor shifts or whatever it might be. I also am someone who relies very heavily on intuition and like discernment. And So I'm fairly confident in my ability to discern what is like for me or like against me. That might be a good way to say it. I don't know.
Sure.
And so I'm not concerned about that, but I want to see kind of what's repeating itself. What is
Mm.
continually coming up? And is that what I need to start putting some energy on, like intentionally focus on that and see where that goes.
Yeah, I think it's a great way of like you're already noticing different thoughts or different energy coming. And I think this is a great way of like you said, you've already been setting some intention, but like a way of observing like, oh, like this is where I want to go. This is what's going on. I think practice like to me, this was the point of stillness was to open up these pathways, these ideas, these thoughts to open up action. Like we're calling it Action July, starting with stillness, which seems counterintuitive, but I think really the purpose of it is because it opens up the doors for action.
Direction and action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. So we'll report back on Monday too.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe just not as elongated. It will just be a little bit of updates, but I'm really curious to see. I need to start doing that. Like
Mm-hmm.
as I'm observing, find the patterns, find the things that are
Mm-hmm.
repeating themselves.
Yeah. Find the things that mm, maybe captivate you more than the others.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And maybe the reason they captivate you is because you need to refine it out. And maybe the reason they captivate you is because it's something you're really interested in.
True. Very true. Hey, I want to bring up one more thing.
Yeah.
So I had this day one was difficult. That's what I will say for stillness. Like for focus, for
Mm,
staying awake, like for knowing what the heck I'm doing, it was difficult. So
mhm,
the second day, which was the 4th of July, and it was a
mhm,
holiday, and we were otherwise really busy. So that was the day that I didn't get my evening time in
mhm,
because of all the things. But in the morning, I went out on my back deck and I was stretching, like stretching my body, stretching my muscles while like engaging in this stillness.
mm,
And though I'm not going to go as far as saying, hey, yoga is incredible, I will say, I think there's something to it, like kind of occupying your body in a good, like healthy, productive way that's not horribly strenuous, but like that gets it doing something to be able to
mm,
focus more on what your mind and your spirit are doing. And it's not to get it out of the way, but it is to get it like at least not fighting against it. Because again, Monday was difficult because I mean, I wanted to either be doing something or sleeping or
mm.
like this is what my body was doing, right? And was not really focused in on the stillness. So I found that to be interesting. And I just want to say, like, I know there's this whole debate in the Christian community, whatever, blah, 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 that yoga's good, yoga's bad.
Right.
Right. I'm going to choose to source from the tree of life, not good and evil, or the knowledge of good and evil, and say that, you know what, I found some life in having my body stretch while the rest of me was focusing on stillness.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I think regardless of what you want to call the movement, moving your body is not like it's such a beautiful thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And
Mm,
you know what else I really wonder about? I feel like I'm dragging this out. I'm really sorry. But you know, there's the whole concept of muscle memory. And
mm,
you know how a lot of times there are certain motions that you do or that your body goes through that will then bring up like actual memory within your brain or connect to some of those pathways, right? So this is why you have flashbacks when you're in certain situations, at certain places, when you hear certain music, like these things. But what if you can train your body to go through things while you're practicing something spiritually and mentally, and then all you have to do is get into that certain posture with your body, and it immediately initiates that state of being, I guess I would say. Like that might actually be a helpful way to unite all three parts of you, or four if you're Dr. Craig, to be able to come into alignment for a singular purpose, to focus all at the same time on one thing. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Sigh. Big sigh.
I think I don't know that I have like a concise thought. Like I think I'm just learning so much about myself, and that, I think there is a coming together. I just don't know exactly what all that looks like. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I think this is not a solid theory. This is ponderings. Like,
right.
If you have listened for any more than 10 seconds, you should know that our podcast is full of ponderings.
Right.
I don't know that any of this is solid theory or proven, but it makes me wonder. This is what it is. Here I am journeying. I'm wondering if this is a connection that's being made. But to the original point, I think about, we were talking about this earlier with my husband, Jason. So he has two ways that he has said that he connects the best with the Lord. One is while he's in the shower. Two is when he's running. And I don't know if it started, I'll have to ask him this evening. I don't know if it started by intentionally focusing in that place. And then now that's just an easy place to like, there it is.
Right.
Again, muscle memory. Here are these things where all of these parts know this is what we do at this moment. You know what I mean? So it does make me wonder with some of those things, can you train for alignment of the different parts of your body?
I mean, I would think yes. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but I would think yes.
I would think yes.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind like trying some things out.
Well, and I think that that's a piece of, I would say that that's maybe a side goal of Action July, is like we're seeking, there will be other ways of connection that we look into, and like I think building that pathway, whether or not it's through physical motion or like just a mental pathway, like there will be a piece of that. Like we both have a friend who used to meditate a lot to a certain music, and then he would say anytime he puts that song on, his brain just immediately goes, oh, this means this. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, but even in a broader sense, like through some of that, but also like, yes, that's a piece of it, but then like, what if just moving your body a certain way triggers like, oh, this means this and this means this? Like, I think that will be a fun thing to explore.
Agreed. I think, I don't know, as you're talking about that friend, it made me think back to, we did this episode on meditation. I kind of don't remember what it was called. Do you remember what that episode was called?
Not off the top of my head.
I don't either. But I was talking about one way that I learned how to focus was by like breathing and thinking of a certain scripture on the breath in, the next line on the breath out, the next line on the breath in, the next line on the breath out.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while of doing that and kind of teaching, this is how my body gets calmed down. Dude, my daughter is making all kinds of noise. She's like blowing into a cup. So if you hear background noise, this is what it is. And she has headphones on, so she has no idea that it's like even loud. I'm sorry. So breathing in, like, be still and know that I am God. That was the scripture that I used. And then it wound up turning into, I could simply take a deep breath in and let a deep breath out, and then I could be focused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
And
good.
that was an interesting thing because it started as one thing. It was like training was one thing. And then after a while, it became such second nature that it was this next thing. And I guess my hope would be that I wouldn't have to have a physical trigger to make everything come into alignment. But it almost seems like a process. Like it's this, then this, then this. Or maybe it will always be this. Or maybe it will be this and then it broadens to that. I don't know.
Well, it makes me think a little bit of how, like, we talk about muscle memory, or we talk about cellular memory, and um, there's a really good book about trauma that I've enjoyed, called In an Unspoken Voice, and it talks about the cellular memory of trauma and how if you watch an animal in the wild, like if you watch a gazelle get chased by a lion and get away, that sometimes it's sort of like for a couple minutes, like a little bit like paralyzed and will shake and do things. And then, 5 minutes later, it's back with the herd drinking water. Like it's like nothing happened. And so what they were noticing was the like shaking of the body is releasing that energy. Well, it makes me think like sort of in another way, can you then train the body through certain movement? Like can you use that energy that's in a body, um, instead of releasing the energy to create the energy? And I think yes, because yeah, I think of like things I've seen with like Tai Chi or karate or just weightlifting, like certain motions you do, you're creating an energetic force to do something. And yeah, I just think that it's there's like, regardless of what your thoughts are on the correctness of any of those things, there's something at the root of movement that I think is important.
I think you're right. And if I'm being really honest, just vulnerable a little bit, I think I've like neglected and rejected my body for far too long as like, you're not part of this.
Yeah, I
Like
think
I'm
that's
super spiritual and you're not part of it. Like
yeah.
really rude to my own body. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And I tend to think that I wouldn't even say I tend to think. I truly believe that there's a purpose in the creator putting us in a physical body, not
right.
for us to just reject it and pretend like it doesn't exist, but for it to actually be part of the whole.
Yeah.
And I think there's trauma that happens in that and like what you do to yourself about your own body. But I also think there's healing. And I think this is also why there can be such power in allowing them all to work together, like all the parts to work
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that there is, yeah, I think when we talk about oneness and alignment, really, like, I think it is everything, not just your spirit. Like, I think it's everything flowing together.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I'm excited to hear our updates on Monday.
Me too.
Hot dog.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. If you want some more content and to be able to interact with us a little bit more, we're still encouraging people to join as a member on YouTube or join our Discord community as well. The link will be in the show notes. Yeah, we're looking forward to connecting with people more and just hearing some of your experiences.
Sure. Your ponderings, your neural pathways you're working on, any of the things.
Any of them.
Yes. Okay. We will see you guys next week.
See you. Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.